Have you ever agreed to do a quick interview, maybe let someone film a short clip, and then almost instantly regretted it? Now, imagine that clip contains some seriously intimate personal history, and boom, it's broadcast all over the internet for literally anyone to see, forever. How much control do you actually have to pull that down? Well, today we're looking at a landmark Colombian constitutional court ruling that basically turns everything we thought we know about digital consent completely upside down. Welcome to this explainer where we're going to unpack ruling T-241/26. Let's get right into it. Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start with a podcast dispute that actually forced the court's hand. Then we'll define what real informed consent looks like now, look at the right to say stop, separate the online fiction from the actual facts of the ruling, and finally lay out the new rules for creators. Starting with Section 1, the podcast that made law. Because to understand the legal jargon, we really need to understand the human story behind it. So our story centers around two people. First, a woman identified in court documents as Mariana. Second, a content creator named Diana who runs a podcast called Audiovisuales La Pradera. Mariana agreed to sit down for an interview. But, this wasn't just a casual chat about the weather. This interview contained her image, her voice, and some highly sensitive, deeply intimate personal history. And this content ended up being published and pushed out across multiple platforms. Put yourself in Mariana's shoes for a second. Watching your most private stories amplified by algorithms, realizing you didn't really grasp what you were signing up for, and just feeling this crushing sense of regret. Well, that regret actually turned into legal action through a tutela, which is a constitutional claim in Colombia meant to protect fundamental rights. And on August 21st, 2026, the Colombian Constitutional Court stepped in. They issued ruling T-241/26, definitively stating that in this specific situation, Mariana's fundamental rights to privacy and to our own image were directly violated. The court looked at the whole situation and realized something pretty massive. What we used to just call consent on the internet, it simply isn't good enough anymore. Which brings us to Section 2, defining real informed consent. If a casual yes doesn't cut it, what does the court actually want? The court laid out 4 absolutely non-negotiable pillars for consent, especially when we're talking about intimate stories or journalistic podcasts. Number 1, it must be prior, meaning you get it before you ever hit that record button. Number 2, it has to be free. 0 coercion, no pressure whatsoever. 3, it must be informed, which we're going to dig into in just a second. And 4, it has to be revocable. Now, this consent can be verbal, it can be written, or even a data message like a text. But a creator can't just rely on a casual thumbs up or quick yeah, sure as they walk by. Because there is a massive gap between a vague agreement and actual meaningful consent. The old way was just that casual, sure, interview me. But the court says meaningful consent means the person you're filming must receive clear, understandable information so they can truly anticipate the effects of the video. In Mariana's case, her consent fell short because she didn't know the whole picture. She didn't know the distribution methods, the potential audience size, the specific platforms the video would live on, whether her trauma was going to be monetized, or even how she could go about getting it deleted. If the subject doesn't know those specific things, the court says their consent is constitutionally invalid. Let's move right into Section 3, the right to say stop. Because as it turns out, getting consent is really only half the battle. The other half is what happens when someone changes their mind. And the absolute crux of this is the concept of revocation. The court explicitly says that authorizing your image once does not mean you are permanently surrendering it for the rest of time. Revocation is your constitutional ability to withdraw your consent. And here's the kicker. When a subject actually exercises this right, the creator cannot just ignore them. The creator is legally bound to take diligent, reasonable steps to make that revocation effective and actually take the content down. You can really see how this broke down in Mariana's case. She officially revoked her consent. She clearly said, take it down. But then, more than a whole year passed, and the content was still just sitting there on platforms completely controlled by the creator. The court found a direct violation here, because eventually removing some copies whenever you happen to get around to it, not good enough. The Constitution demands timely, reasonable efforts. Leaving someone's sensitive, deeply intimate interview up for over a year after they asked for it to be removed is just a massive failure of due diligence. Which brings us to Section 4, the ruling. Fact versus fiction. Because you know how it goes, whenever a big tech or media law drops, the internet naturally goes into full panic mode. Let's methodically separate what the court actually ordered from the crazy online myths. When this ruling dropped, people online lost their collective minds. People were screaming that this meant automatic jail time for creators, massive financial damages, or that you'd suddenly need signed release forms from every random person walking in the background of a street blog. Totally false. The court actually went out of its way to balance privacy with freedom of the press. The reality is way more measured. The court just ordered direct constitutional remedies, a public apology from the creator if Mariana wanted one, strict takedown orders to guarantee this wouldn't happen again, and a warning to exercise due diligence in the future. In fact, the court entirely rejected the claim for financial damages and monetization payouts in this specific tutela. But wait, what about those rumors of creators getting arrested? Well, that comes from a complete misunderstanding of how the law actually works. Under Decreto 2591, disobeying a judge's direct tutela order, which is a concept known as desacato or contempt, is what can lead to arrest for up to 6 months or fines of 20 minimum wages. You do not get automatically thrown in jail simply for posting an unauthorized image. You only face those kinds of severe sanctions if a judge orders you to take it down and you absolutely flat out refuse to obey the judge. Now, there is also a completely separate statutory layer you should be aware of regarding data protection, known as Ley 1581. This one is managed by the Superintendencia de Industria y Comercio, or the SIC. If a creator unlawfully processes sensitive data, like someone's health info or their sex life, outside of specific journalistic exceptions, the SIC can absolutely bring the hammer down. The steps here are pretty brutal. It starts with fines of up to 2,000 minimum wages, escalates to a 6-month suspension of data processing, and can even end with the temporary or definitive closure of your operations. Again, these are separate administrative sanctions, not automatic penalties from RT 241 rolling, but they really highlight just how seriously Colombia takes digital privacy. Let's wrap this whole thing up in Section 5, the new rules for creators. How do we actually translate all this heavy constitutional doctrine into a practical, everyday playbook? If you are hitting record, this checklist is your new everyday playbook. Before you interview someone about their private life or sensitive history, you have to disclose the exact scope of the recording. You've got to tell them exactly which platforms it's going to live on. Like, is it just an audio podcast or is it going to YouTube and TikTok too? You need to disclose that the content will be monetized. You have to explain how widely it's going to be distributed. And honestly, most importantly, you have to explain the deletion process. How can they revoke their consent, and what will you actually do to honor that request? If you check these boxes, your consent is legally bulletproof. I really want to highlight this specific quote directly from the court's ruling because it's so important. It says, authorization to use one's image cannot mean a definitive renunciation of the right. That is a huge, profound shift in how we view our digital real estate. Giving someone permission to tell your story today absolutely does not mean they own your identity tomorrow. As digital citizens, we retain ongoing, lifelong control over our personal image and our sensitive data. We've seen how a single podcast dispute ended up reshaping constitutional protections, proving that the digital age just demands a much higher standard of respect for human privacy. So I'll leave you with this to chew on. Look at the photos, the interviews, and the media you've participated in across the internet. Knowing the true power of informed consent and your absolute right to say stop, how secure are your own digital image rights today? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep asking those hard questions.